Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Mahaprabhu ki Tanandrita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Diramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktam Sa Niyunjatapi Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Kritaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradhikama Kabayarapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Shiradhikama Kabayarapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalopasya Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayono Ratikelisidhyai Jajali Bheri Juktir Apekshaneya Ne kunjayono Tatrati Daksha Ativala Bhasya Vande Gura Shri Charanaravrindam Sakshat Haritena Shamastashra Shri Nityastatha bhavyataiva sadhuvi sakyatari Kintu prabhurja priya eva tasya Bande guru shri charanara vrindam Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Yasya prasada Jayam subham tasa yasatin sandhyam Vande gurashi charanara vindam Vande gurashi charanara Jayam subham tasa yasatin sandhyam Vande gurashi charanara vindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatyadi Shatarine Namaste Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Shri Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Radhe.
नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदाम्बियोलोकलादवमानम् परामृष्टम् अत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्मं मृजन्तं कराम्बोजयुग्मेन शातकनेत्रम् मुगुश्वासकम्पात्रिरिक्कङ्ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिपदम् त्रिरिक्कङ्ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिपदम् इति दृक्ष्वा लीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वाघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आज्ञापयन्तम् तदीयेषु तज्ञेषु भक्तैर्जितत्वम् पुनः प्रेम तस्सं चातावृत्ति वन्दे तदीयेषु तज्ञेषु भक्तैर्जितत्वम् पुनः प्रेम तस्सं चातावृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवा मोक्षं न मोक्षावधिं वा न चान्यं रणेगं वरसेदपीघा इदं ते वपूर्णात् गोपालबालं सदा मे मनस्या वीरस्तं किमन्यै इदं ते मुखाम्बोजम् अत्यन्तनीलै व्रतं कुण्डलै स्निग्धरक्तैश्च गोप्या मुगुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्ताधरं मे मनस्या विरस्तं मालं लक्ष्यलाभै चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्ताधरं मे मनस्या नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलाब्धिमग्नम् दामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलाब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्याति दिनं बतानु ग्रहनिशे मामज्ञं यत्यक्षिदृश्या कुबेरात्मजौ बद्धमुत्यैव यत्वत् त्वया मोचितौ भक्तिभजौ कृतौ च तदा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वाकमे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेऽस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्तेस्तु दाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदरायत विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe, Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe, Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadramayi Jaya Sudarshana, Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadramayi Jaya Sudarshana, Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, 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 Jaya Gaura Nitai, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura.
जय विश्वपार परम सप्रभाजकाचार्य सूत्र सरशिष्यमाद इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विविधि सांस्तपकाचार्य वैष्णव श्रमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दात पतित पावन डिवाइन ग्रेस अभयचरविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद जी की जय। श्री गौर्य गुरुवर्ग पतित उद्धार की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भद्र गुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सतगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत कुटुंब वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। परम दरस नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन का जना का प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम सचनंदन स्मरण गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावर्ण अवतार की जय। श्री श्री राधा दामोदर की जय। श्री यशोदा दामोदर की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glory to the Son of the bodies. All glory to the Son of the bodies. All glory to the Son of the bodies. All glory to Shri Shri Guru Shri Guru. No, your daughter. Asking, I was asking if your small daughter can. Listen, listen. Your younger look. don't force her.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Praladala Tadayine.
Praladala Tadayine.
Hiranyakashipur Vakshaha.
Hiranyakasipu Vakshaha.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Silatankanakalaye.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha.
Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha.
Jato Jato Yami Tato Narasimha.
Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha.
Vaye Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapadye.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapayye.
Tava Kara Kamala Varenaka Advuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubengam Ke Shavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Tavakara Kamala Varenaka Advuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubengam Ke Shavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Sabadita
Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Kesavadrita Narani Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev
Jaya Narasimha Dev.
Narasimha Dev.
Jaya Narasimha Dev. Jaya Narasimha Dev. Narasimha Dev. Jaya Narasimha Dev.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Sravik Nashana Shingare Bhagavan ki Jai. Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Bol. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Brindai tulasi devai priyai ke sava satya Krishna bhakti prade devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Brinda Devi ki jai. You need help?
Yes, Prabhu. I need my daughter.
Well, you're gonna sing. But the daughter's not there now. You by yourself.
Huh?
The daughter's not there. Oh.
She's there. Come. Boss, you can say. Yeah, పక్కట్లో ఉంది. I was sitting here.
Namo
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Radha Krishna
Seva Pavo
He Abhilasi
Krishna Seva Pavo Navilasi Radha
Krishna Seva Pavo He Abhilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi Je Tumhara
Saranaloy Tara Vanchapurna Hoy
Je Tumhara Saranaloy Tara Vanchapurna
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavana Vasi
Kripa Kori Kora Tare Vrindavana Vasi Morai
Abhilas Vilas Kunja Diyo Vas
Morai Avilas Vilas Kunya Diyova
Nayane Hari Bo Sada Jugal Ruparasi
Amilayane Devasada Jugalaruparasi
Nivedana Daro Sakiranu Gata Koro
Nivedana Daro Sakiranu Gata Koro
Sevadi Karo Diye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayadi Koro Niye Koro Nijadasi
Dina Krishna Dase Koye Namora Hoy
Dina Krishna Das Koye Namora
Shri Radha Govinda Premi Sadaye Nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Nava Shri Radha Govinda
Govinda Premi Sadaye Nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Nava
Kani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Hatyari Kani Cha Kani तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
जाने काने सा पापाने ब्रह्मचर्य कानि सा तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यानि कानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
जाने काने सा पापाने ब्रह्मचर्य कानि सा तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे जाने
कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Brahmachari, yeah, tani tani. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi,
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi,
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda, Jaya Tulsi Maharani,
Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani,
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Nitai Gaura Hari,
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki.
Jai! You survived, huh? Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Ke Savasatya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Okay, yeah. Beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, carry the emphasis of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpanamajanam Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriyakariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padiparam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakaya Sarveshakis Tatravidyanim Dashmarane Nakala Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam bhajagari shakamaye mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatar bhakti raituke tvai oinanda tanuja kinkaram paritama visame bhavam buddho kripaya tava pada pankaja stitadule sadrisham vichintaya nayanam galorashtrudharaya Vadanam gada gada rudaya gira Pulakai jitam vapukada Tavanamagrane bhavishati Jugaitam nimishena Chakrusha pravrshaitam Sunyaitam jagat sarvam Govinda virahe name Asli shavapadaratam pinastumam Adarshana marmahatam karotu va Jatha tathava viradhatulam pato Mat prana tastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam ki jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Prudayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gaurvani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyadi Satarine Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life with repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the light of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause, the devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some rather I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? Will the hairs of my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so, even if his handle me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, and Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic Lord, or the scripture pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna one of the species of stylistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. Is to instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be in a chant while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned soul. Jai Bancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Guru Pranam Om Jnana Timirandasya
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shiva Sarvanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjwala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Sarvani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambu Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Virayate Guruvir Baba Bhumestwam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Bacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padaya Te Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Chayatam Sudatar Pangur Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shimat Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Brastadi Bihisevyamana Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatakstriye Struna Vanki Radhe Vrindavanishware Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. So now I'm gonna skip again the Brahma Samhita today and go directly to finish, if we can, the series of lectures. And we're going to speak now specifically about the 11th chapter, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 47th verse. This is an extremely important verse and purport. And if we and what's being we can very quickly make major steps toward becoming much more sincere about Krishna consciousness. So the verse says, Acharyam eva haraye pujam ya shradhayatehe natad bhakte suchanye su sabhakta pakrita smita. 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 47th verse. And the verse is translated as follows. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in a temple, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. And Prabhupada's purport follows. Srila Madhvacharya comments, that's not Prabhupada's purport, it's a purport by one of his disciples. Sri Madhvacharya comments that one in the lowest stage of devotional service faithfully worships the deity in the temple, but is not aware that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually all-pervading. This same mentality can be seen in the Western countries, where people commit all types of sinful activities in their homes and in the street, but then piously go to a church and pray to God for mercy. Actually, God is in our home. God is in the street. God is in our office. And God is in the forest. And God is everywhere. And therefore, God should be worshipped everywhere by the process of devotional service at His lotus feet, as stated in verse 41 of this chapter. So that's 11 to 41. Kam vayum agnim salilam mohimcha jyotim si satvani diso drumadin sarit samudram chaharir sariram yam kim chabutam prapnaned ananya. A devotee should not see anything as being separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Ether, fire, air, water, earth, the sun, the other luminaries, all living beings, the directions, trees and other plants, the rivers and oceans, Whatever a devotee experiences, he should consider to be an expansion of Krishna. Thus, seeing everything that exists within creation as the body of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the devotee should offer his sincere respects to the entire expansion of the Lord's body. This is the vision of the Mahabhagavata devotee of the Lord. Srila Madhvacharya states that a Madhyama Adhikari, a devotee in the intermediate stage, sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and therefore offers his love to the Lord. Such a devotee is a sincere friend of other devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids the atheists. Nonetheless, tad vasatvam na janati sarvasya jagata pitu. His realization of the all-pervading feature of the Supreme Lord is imperfect. Although he does have a general sense that everyone is ultimately meant to be a devotee of the Supreme Lord, and he tries to use everything in the service of Krishna, aware that everything belongs to the Lord, he may be bewildered by association with atheistic men. This is a big statement. That if one is still attracted, let's say someone is like attracted to Elon Musk because he's so rich and he's created so many businesses and he seems to be on the cusp of the latest new research, and he has so many employees and he has so much money and he has so many kids with so many different wives.
Not wives
They're not all wives. They're not all, yeah. So, because he has more and more things like this, he must be one of the greatest people in the history of the world, right? So one is overpowered by the shining glitter of such a person, right? And just like sometimes I criticize Asad Guru, and people say, Prabhu, at least, when he has programs, he gets 100,000 people that come, and he tries to encourage them to be Hindus, he's some kind of a block to the Muslims. And, you have to say, well, okay, we'll give him some credit, But no, why should we give him any credit at all? He's a Mayavadi, you see. But yet, people are dazzled by the so-called great feats that he's performing. What is the great feat he's performing? He's seems to be worshiping a gigantic deity of Shiva, but it's actually what you would call a hoax, because he's worshiping what's called Shivam, this concept of Shiva as the all-encompassing deity in the material world. But actually, they reject him as a person, and they want to merge into some light energy. So their worship of Lord Shiva is a hoax. It's not real. We should worship Lord Shiva as the devotee, the most advanced devotee of Krishna. That's different, yeah. But they worship him as the aggregate of the material world, but in the final steps, they reject him as a person, and they want to merge into some kind of what he calls Shivam. You see, so there's no real credit to these people. So the Madhyama Adhikari will criticize someone like that, and the Kanishta Adhikari says, he's so hell-bent on criticizing people that are doing something good for for Hinduism, you see. So now this is going to be explained more in depth now in this purport. Now, I'm not saying we should just spend all our time criticizing the demigods or criticizing people like Asad Guru, but we have to understand the Kanistadikar is on the lowest level of spiritual advancement. They're neophytes. And they might know a lot of things, but that doesn't mean they understand the profound sense of those things. Okay, so here it says, God is in our office, God is in the forest, God is everywhere, and therefore God should be worshipped everywhere by the process of devotional service at his lotus feet, as stated in verse 41. Okay, so Srimad Vajrayana states that a Madhyama Adhikari, a devotee in the intermediate stage, sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and therefore offers his love to the Lord. Such a devotee is a sincere friend of other devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids the atheist. So these are the four primary qualities of a Madhyama Adhikari, whether on the lower stage or higher stage of Madhyama. Nonetheless, tad vasatvam na janati sarvasya jagata pitu. His realization of the all-pervading feature of the Supreme Lord is imperfect. Although he does have a general sense that everyone is ultimately meant to be a devotee of the Supreme Lord, and he tries to use everything in the service of Krishna, aware that everything belongs to the Lord, he may be bewildered by association with atheistic men. So in other words, he said he may be. Right? Srila Madhvacharya states, Acharyam eva samstitam Vishnum yatva tad anyatra naiva janati yat pumam. A Kanista Adhikari has no idea that the Supreme Lord has the power to exist outside a church or temple. So now he switched a little bit. So he in the previous paragraph, he's talking about Madhyama Adhikaris, which are on a higher level than Kanistas. But he's saying even these people may be bewildered by the association with atheistic men. Now he switches to the Kanista Adhikari, who's on a lower level, has no idea that the Supreme Lord has the power to exist outside a church or temple. Furthermore, being puffed up by his own ceremonial worship, Atmana Bhakti, Dharpata, a Kanista Adhikari cannot imagine that anyone is more pious or religious than he. So this Kanista Adhikari is someone who worships the deity, who's initiated twice, and is able to worship the deity. But he has a serious fault, and he's going to explain it now. First of all, he cannot imagine that anyone is more pious or religious than he. And he is not even aware that other devotees are more advanced. Thus, he cannot understand the Madhyama or Uttama standard of devotional service. And sometimes, because of his false pride, he criticizes the more advanced devotees of the Lord, neglects them, or simply has no understanding of their exalted position as preachers or completely self-realized souls. Another symptom of the Kanista Adhikari is that he is infatuated by the material qualifications of so-called great materialistic persons. So now, his disease is even worse than the Madhyama Adhikari, who may still be somewhat bewildered by these big guys in the material world. But he's even worse. Having a bodily concept of life himself, he is attracted by the material opulence and thus minimizes the position of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Such a Kanista Adhikari, therefore, is disturbed if a second-class devotee criticizes the non-devotees of the Lord. In the name of compassion or kindness, a Kanista Adhikari approves of the non-devotional activities of such materialistic men. See, these are big statements. You have to really think about this seriously. Because the Kanista Adhikari is ignorant of the higher realms of devotional service and the unlimited transcendental bliss of Krishna consciousness, he sees devotional service merely as the religious aspect of life, but thinks that life has many enjoyable and worthwhile non-devotional aspects. Therefore, he becomes angry when second-class devotees, meaning the Madhyama Adhikaris, who are experiencing that Krishna is everything, criticize the non-devotees Madhvacharya says that such a person, because of his rudimentary faith in Krishna, is considered a devotee, but he is Bhakta Adama.
Bhakta Adama.
Huh?
Bhakta Adama.
Bhakta Adama, okay. A devotee on the lowest standard. If such materialistic devotees follow the rules and regulations of deity worship, they will gradually be elevated to a higher standard and eventually become pure devotees of the Lord, unless they commit offenses against other devotees, in which case their advancement will be checked. Whoa. In other words, thwarted, stopped. Srila Madhvacharya states, Tad Bhaktanam Upekshaka Kuryur Vishnu Apidvesam. Those who neglect or show indifference to the devotees of the Lord are to be considered offenders at the lotus feet of Vishnu. Similarly, those who disrespect the demigods will become bereft of devotional service and be forced to rotate again and again within samsara, the cycle of birth and death. Whoa. Puja devas tata sada. The demigods are always to be offered respect, since they are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If someone is envious of the demigods, he is to be considered envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, one who offers sincere respect to the demigods is considered to be respecting the will of the Supreme Lord. A Vaishnava does not foolishly think that there are many gods. He knows that there is one Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as stated many times in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord has a mission within this material world, which is to reform the conditioned living entities through the cruel laws of nature. Notice, he uses the words cruel, and it is cruel. Birth, old age, disease, death, these things are cruel. They're horrible.
Material nature is unforgiving.
Material nature is blind. If a child who's never committed any sin sticks their finger in the fire, it'll burn. The fire says, oh, we have to excuse this one. He's just a little child, didn't really understand what he was doing. No. They're cruel rules of material nature. Does that mean God is cruel? No. It simply means that he's trying to teach us, as we say, in two ways. One, by teaching Bhagavad Gita, sending saints, coming himself, and he speaks Bhagavad Gita every time there's a decline in religiosity in the material world and a concomitant rise of materialism and demons. So he'll come to annihilate the demons, to deliver the devotees, and to reestablish the principles of religion, right? Because that's his duty. He's in charge of it. So he must do that if there's a serious decline. Okay, so, but as stated many times in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord has a mission within this material world, which is to reform the conditioned living entities through the cruel laws of nature. In the Lord's mission within this world, the demigods are to be considered limbs of the Lord's body. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamaistaistar hitagyana prapadyante nya devata tam tam niyamamastaya prakritya taksvaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. End of quote. But there are many examples of devotees who worship the demigods to get benedictions for serving Lord Krishna. So we mentioned this previously, but now it's going to go deeper into it. The gopis worship the demigods to achieve Krishna. And similarly, Rukmini Devi, on the day of her marriage, engaged in such demigod worship. In other words, on the day of her marriage, she was supposed to marry somebody else. But she went to the temple and she worshipped, basically, I think it was Durga. her only goal being Krishna. Even today, the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement cultivate important people. Now he's drawing a parallel between devotees who have worshipped demigods, like the gopis, they worship Katyayani, and also Rukmini, to modern day preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement who cultivate important people who are materialistic people. And they're usually rich people or powerful people in positions of importance, with all kindness and diplomacy, so that such wealthy or influential people will engage their resources in the devotional service of Krishna to glorify Krishna all over the world. Now, we have to be careful here, because when you get to know someone who's very rich, like the Ambani family, right? So Radhanath Swami knows them very well, very intimately, and one of their sons is like a devotee of him. So when you associate with such big people, it's dazzling, because they have such unbelievable riches, and they're dressed nicely, or sometimes they have very nice bodies, and their wives are very beautiful, and they have the top class of food, and they call it prasadam, and they have temple in their gigantic home, and they have brahmanas that are worshiping the deity, or maybe sometimes they also worship the deity. So it's dazzling, right? But the devotee is not interested in the dazzle. They're only interested in helping these people make some spiritual advancement. And it's very hard for them, because they have so much opulence, and they have such high esteem in society, right? But yet, they're just ordinary people. So the devotee sees them as ordinary persons who have good karma from previous lives, but they can waste that karma by engaging in sense gratification, and then go back again to being, rats and worms and pigs and things like that in the next life. It's like Prabhupada once said that Nehru took birth as a dog in Sweden. So after being Nehru, you end up with 4 legs and a tail, right? So you got to be very careful here. There are some philosophies, like the Theosophists, they claim that you can never go backwards in evolution. You can only keep going forward. Madame Blavatsky, Madame Blah Blah, but she doesn't know what she's talking about. Says, yeah, you can go backwards, of course. You can go way back, and even start all over again as an amoeba. Yeah. So we got to be very careful what we do in the human form of life, because the human form of life has tremendous responsibilities. And if we don't, but see, there's another point. Let's make this point. It's very important. Why does Krishna come to try and save all the living entities in the material world to come back to Godhead? Because we were all originally with him. That's why. If we were not originally with him, why would he waste his time trying to bring us back? See? It's not that we've always been in the material world. We were originally all with Krishna, but we fell down. Therefore, he's concerned. He's Aham Bija Pradapita, the father of all living entities. So he's doing everything possible. He wants us to come back to Godhead more than we want to go back to Godhead. See? So, therefore, we should understand our very unfortunate situation in this material world and not be enamored by the glitter of the material nature. One time I was walking down the street, and there was a lady that was, a little bit farther ahead of me, and she had these high heels on. She had a very tight dress, and she had very, very beautiful hair. And I was thinking, wow, this must be a pretty woman, And she had this movie star way of walking, it's sort of walking like this a little bit, one leg a little bit crossed with the other leg as she walks forward. Anyway, so I was thinking, let me walk a little faster and see what she looks like. So I walked faster and I started passing her. And I looked and it was an old lady, wrinkles, and she had a lot of makeup on, and probably was a wig on her head, and she had this very tight dress, so it looks like she's got a really nice body or whatever. But she was an old lady, and I said, "My God, what illusion I was in." You see, this is like Surpanaka. Surpanaka is really ugly, but she changed her body. The Rakshasas, who come from higher levels in the universe than we do, they're basically situated on the asteroids. And every once in a while they descend on the earth to cause havoc, like Ravana, like Elon Musk, and Hitler, and people like that. They just cause havoc on the earth, and they usually ends up in death and war and things like that, and they cause the death of so many people. And then they go back again to the asteroids and plan another trip to mess things up. So we see they are superior to human beings. And they're much more superior in technology. Did you know that? That on the asteroids, you have people that are superior to us technologically. And they have powers. They can change their body at will. Ravana was doing this. And Kamsa also was able to do these things. They can change their body. Well, when Ravana was fighting with Ram, he sometimes disappeared. He knew how to disappear. And you can't see him. And then he appears way up in the sky and is throwing weapons at you, right? So, how would you defeat a person like that? It's almost impossible, right? So they have these powers. And then at one point, Ravana produces a facsimile of Dasarath and comes in front of Rama and cuts his head off, cuts Dasarath's head off. And it was bewildering, right? But, of course, Ramachandra was not bewildered. He might have acted like that a little bit, but he was not really bewildered. And eventually he killed Ravana. But none of us would have been able to kill Ravana. Ravana is superior to us. Right? So the demons have a lot of technological advancement. And the proof is people like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa and all these people. But especially Ravana, he was a very, very nasty guy. Okay, so...
Ravana had autopilot cars.
Yeah.
And then he had robots to clean his...
He had that super airplane that he stole from the demigod. And he promised Sita, I said, you surrender to me. He said, I will give up all the other wives. They'll all be your servants, and I'll be your servant. And I'll take you anywhere in the universe and give you any amount of opulence. And Sita said, anyone who has seen a swan is not interested in a crow. Whoa, she put him down big time. So, yeah, but he offered her everything. He said, I'll worship you. I'll be your servant. And she refused. So that's called chastity. She was a chaste wife. Okay, so those whose minds are distorted by materialistic desires, by material desires, surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. But there are many examples of devotees who worship the demigods to get benedictions for serving Lord Krishna. The gopis worship the demigods to achieve Krishna. And similarly, Rukmini Devi, on the day of her marriage, engaged in such demigod worship, her only goal being Krishna. Even today, the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement cultivate important people with all kindness and diplomacy, so that such wealthy or influential people will engage their resources in the devotional service of Krishna to glorify Krishna all over the world. Similarly, offering all respects to the demigods so that they will give facility for the devotional service of Krishna is not against the bhakti marga, the bhakti path. Although nowadays such demigod worship has also deteriorated. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harinama Sankirtana, chanting the holy names of Krishna, as the only realistic process for this age. So, what did he just do here? He's saying, yeah, there are exceptions on the more advanced level, but Lord Chaitanya recognizing the vulnerability of people in Kali Yuga, because we're coming from such low backgrounds, it's better just to concentrate on chanting Hare Krishna and not try and do things that may be degrading for you. So, yeah, like I knew one devotee, he heard about this Mayavadi that came to Paris. So he decided that he would go and conquer him. So he leaves. He didn't tell any of us what he was going to do. So he goes and to the Mayavadi's lecture, and then he asks some challenging questions, and he challenges him in front of everyone. And the Mayavadi gave him a whole burst of quotes in Sanskrit. Mayavadis are smart, they're not dumb, right? And he quoted all these verses and gave his own interpretation of it, and the devotee got bewildered, and he surrendered to him. See? So we should not think that, we have so much knowledge we can defeat anybody, because the only thing we really have, the only astra, weapon that we have, is Mahaprashadam and Harinam Sankirtan. That's what we really have. It's not that we're better than everybody else in quoting Sanskrit or understanding Sanskrit. No, you'll meet many people that know way more about Sanskrit than we do, right? And they can quote many more shastras than we do. But we do have the Mahamantra, and we have Mahaprashadam, and we have Prabhupada's purports. So we should stay in that safe zone and not think that we are invincible, that we can convince anybody to become a devotee and make them surrender or whatever. The only thing that convinces people is the genuine sincerity and honesty of a devotee. That purity, in other words, the purity of the devotee, that who will not go outside a certain perimeter, right? They know what their limit is. So, therefore, they won't take very risky chances trying to convince very, very rich people or very fallen people to become Krishna conscious. But they will go out on Sankirtan and chant for everybody, right? Chant to help everyone and give everyone a chance to have a Prabhupada book or have prasadam. But they have to be very careful not to overestimate their powers. So there's a saying, don't stretch your foot beyond your bedspread, because you'll catch a cold. If you go like this all night long, your feet are exhibited to cold weather, you'll wake up with a cold, with the sniffles, right? So, yeah, don't stretch your foot beyond your bedspread. There's a very good story about this, but I won't tell it right now. So anyway, here we see, it says, nonetheless. Yeah, so they will give facility for the devotional service of Krishna is not against the bhakti marga, although nowadays such demigod worship has also deteriorated. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harinama Sankirtana, chanting the holy names of Krishna, as the only realistic process for the age of Kali. Nonetheless, a devotee of the Lord should not misinterpret Bhagavad Gita's injunctions against demigod worship as a license to offend the demigods who are bona fide Vaishnavas. There it is. We should not offend the demigods because they're devotees. They might not be devotees on the highest level, but they are definitely devotees, and they're intimate devotees in the sense that they are servants of Krishna, doing with great responsibilities given to them by Krishna. So we should not criticize them, nor should it be offensive in any way. And when Lord Chaitanya was going through South India, he also visited demigod temples, and he offered respect, right? But he didn't think that they're independent gods, right? So there's a right way and there's a wrong way. That's the whole point. And this is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Let me see if I can find it real quickly.
Ninth chapter.
No, wait a minute. Yeah. One second. So, 3rd chapter, 12th verse. Let's take a look at that. Third chapter, 12th verse. Can't even.
Ishtan Bhogan Hivo Deva Dasyante Yajna Bhavtaka Tair Dattam Apradibhyabhyo Yobung Testena Yevasaha.
So that was 3rd chapter, 12th verse. I'm looking at the 13th verse, 12th verse. Okay, so here it says, for one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. There it is. According to the different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yajnas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely, according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature. And before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those who are in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Vishnu is recommended. But ultimately, all yajnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary man, at least 5 yajnas, known as Pancha Mahayajna, are necessary. Okay, so there it is. It says, for one who cannot understand what the personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to demigods is recommended. So, why? Because when you accept that there's someone greater than you, that's the beginning of spiritual life. Right. So we should not. So there's another important verse where it says that you should not disturb the minds of the nonsense people by trying to stop them from doing certain things. Right. So if you're trying to tell a person, "Oh, you're worshiping demigods, you're going to hell." Well, that may or may not be true, but we should not disturb the minds of people. Rather, we should show them a proper example. Let's see where that verse is. I'm trying to listen. It's in the 3rd chapter also. So here we're saying, what seems to be contrary points, but they're not. So 3rd chapter 26 verse says, so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. This is all very fundamental strategies to help people, you see. But we always, just like I've told this story before, there was one devotee in France. He was a fanatic. And his parents would regularly come to the temple, not every day, but they would come like on big festival days, and they would stay maybe a day or two in the temple and do some service, and then they'd go home. And they were very happy that their son was initiated first and second, and that he was a devotee. They never objected to him doing that. And then every once in a while he would go and stay with his parents a day or two. But he was a fanatic. So he told his mother and father, he said, look, if you don't come and surrender to Guru Dev, you sell your house and you move into the temple, and mom stays with the brahmacharis and dad, you stay with the brahmacharis, I'm not your son anymore, and I'm not going to come and see you anymore. And they were like devastated when he said that. And it was mean the way he said it, you know. And they said, well, we just can't do that right now. He said, then I'm not going to see you anymore. You know, you're not my mother and father anymore. He's a crazy guy, right? You know what happened to him? He fell down. And later on, his parents became initiated and full devotees. You see what happens when you're a fanatic? And is he following Krishna consciousness? No. Look at these verses we just read. He's not following Krishna consciousness. He doesn't know how to preach. And he fell down. He never came back. You know. And he was so-called a very advanced devotee. He was doing a lot of service. He also helped me. I gave him a project to do, and he was very good at coding. So I told him that I was going to amalgamate perfumes to a computer program, so that women who would follow this color test. There's a color test. You see 8 different colors, and then you choose 3, and right away we can tell you your whole psychological makeup. And then we connected that to perfumes. So I was doing these demos with the whole line of perfumes I did. I called it Stephanie. And it had really nice boxes, and it was all first-class stuff. And then people would come, and we said, would you like to see what your future is going to be? And they would say, yes. And then so they would go on the computer. No, first of all, they would choose the 3 colors, and then we'd add it into the computer, and then it would print out a psychological profile of them. And then based on the profile, we had a number of the perfumes that we had suggested for them to enhance their qualities, right? And it worked. It was a hit, right? And this boy, this devotee, he did the tech part. He made the program, the algorithm, and he did a great job. You know, he knew his at that time. That's a long, long time ago, right? And I was sure that this was going to be it was a hit, and I was getting people really liked the idea. Then I got a phone call from a lawyer who represented the king of Monaco, and who had 2 daughters, one with his wife, who was an American, like a very prominent American star, actress, who lived close to my house, where I was born. Not very far away was their house, which is a big mansion. Anyway, he said he was representing the king of Monaco, and the king had 2 daughters. One was Stephanie, and one was Caroline. So when I was trying to figure out the name of my product, I thought about those 2 girls, and I had to decide, should I call it Caroline or should I call it Stephanie? And for some reason or other, I chose the name Stephanie, right? So now the lawyer tells me, look, you registered the name Stephanie. I registered the name, right? So he couldn't take it, right, legally. So he said, the king wants to buy it. I said, what? He said, he wants to buy it. How much you want? I said, well, let me think about this, because I had just finished the whole line I spent, a lot of money doing it. And he said, you tell us what you want. So at that time, I really wanted to leave France anyway. So I said $100,000. He said, okay. I should have said like $500,000 or so, or $1 million, but I just said, I wasn't greedy. I said $100,000. So that largely, far exceeded what I spent to come out with, to register the name and print the boxes and everything. So he said yes, and all of a sudden I got $100,000 right away. Right. So that's like, you can't even think of something like that, right? I didn't know. I just intuitively chose that name because, it was one of the daughters of the King of Monaco. So anyway, you see how we should always to making spiritual progress and never think we know everything. There are so many things we don't know, and we're not going to know it unless we regularly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and hear devotees share their experiences also and their realizations and of the validity of everything Prabhupada is saying. See? Some people criticize Prabhupada and say, well, he only gave the foundation, but our Guru has given the edifice, right? That's a bunch of nonsense. That's not true, right? Prabhupada is a Mahabhagavat devotee. He didn't just give the basis. But if you don't have a good foundation, whatever you build is going to fall down eventually, right? So he has given such a solid foundation, and he gave everything else also, but not cheaply. When we're ready to go to higher levels, okay, Prabhupada will be there to guide us. So we should just stay with the basic things, chanting Hare Krishna, distributing prasadam, regularly hearing classes, chanting our rounds, good rounds, preferably early in the morning. There's a whole lecture by Tamal Krishna Maharaj about this. I just discovered it recently. He gives such a convincing explanation of why you should chant your rounds in the Brahma Muhurta. It's an amazing lecture that he gave, and this is years ago. Way before I've been saying you have to chant in the Brahma Muhurta. And I never heard that lecture of his, but every word he said is what I actually am convinced of also. And that just shows what an advanced devotee he was. Okay, so do not disturb the minds of the ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties. A learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them. That's the key. Engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so let's go back now. So, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, since a Kanistha Adhikari who cannot properly respect other devotees will certainly fail to offer respects to ordinary living entities who are not even devotees, a Kanistha Adhikari is useless for practical preaching work. There it is. And that's the example of this devotee I gave. He is useless. Instead of helping his parents, he was trying to discourage them to be Krishna conscious. But they were smart enough not to buckle to what he was saying. Now, what he was saying is not necessarily wrong, but the way he presented it was wrong. See? So it's not only. He could say, well, I was just preaching to them. What are you talking about, right? We should all surrender to Gurudev. Yeah, but what if a person's not ready? You're going to thwart their enthusiasm to gradually come to the right position. So we have to be very careful the way we preach. Srila Jiva Goswami says, Iyam cha shradana shastrarta vadarana jata. Because the Kanistha Adhikari's faith is not actually based on the statements of Vedic literature. He cannot understand the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within everyone's heart. Therefore, he cannot actually manifest love of Godhead, nor can he understand the exalted position of the devotees of the Lord. Krishna is so glorious that Krishna's intimate associates must also be glorious, but this is unknown to a Kanista Adhikari. Similarly, the essential qualification of a Vaishnava, which is to offer all respects to others, amanina, manadina, kirtaniya, sadahari, is also conspicuous by its absence in a Kanista Adhikari. If such a person, however, has faith in the Vedic literatures and tries to understand the statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, he will gradually be elevated to the second and first class stages of devotional service. So what's the process? Not to insult anybody, not to be fanatical, but have faith in the Vedic literatures and try to understand the statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But that's a lifetime endeavor. It's not a one-time endeavor. Initiation may be a one-time endeavor. So one time someone asked Prabhupada, he said, "Are your disciples pure devotees?" And Prabhupada said, "Yes." But they're striving still to purify the purification. So in other words, they're still making spiritual advancement. Right? It's not that they know everything. Right? Because initiation is the beginning of spiritual life. It's not the end of spiritual life. It's only the beginning, where you formally make a vow to follow the rules and regulations and chant 16 good rounds a day. So one time, this one lady told me, "Prabhu, the next time this Guru Dev comes here, I'm gonna blast this other devotee who's a nonsense, and I'm gonna tell him, what's the real facts about this devotee. This devotee's a nonsense." I said, "Prabhu, when you got initiated, what did you promise Prabhupada to do?" And she said, to follow regulatory principles, chant our guests. I said, that's what you should concentrate on, not on blaspheming this devotee, even though that devotee might be a nonsense. But it's not your business to blaspheme the devotee. Your business is to very carefully chant your rounds every day and follow very scrupulously the 4 regulative principles, because that's what you promised to do. You didn't promise Guru Dev every time he comes you're gonna vilify somebody. You say. So, we should not go outside of our promise. We should stick to the promise. That means we are actually a devotee. It's not that because we can blaspheme somebody that we're a devotee, even though that person may deserve it. But Krishna is a much better, let's say, corrector of people than we are. And because Krishna gives knowledge and he also gives forgetfulness. So he'll take care of these people. Don't worry about it. We should worry about following the regulative principles that we promise to follow and chanting very good rounds and going on Sankirtan and preaching and all the good things that we do. All things that are fun. Vilifying someone is not fun. But just doing the things that are Krishna conscious, it's all fun. It's all wonderful. It's all full of bliss. Okay, so therefore, such a person cannot actually manifest love of Godhead, nor can he understand the exalted position of the devotees of the Lord. Krishna is so glorious that Krishna's intimate associates must also be glorious, but this is unknown to a Kanista Adhikari. Similarly, the essential qualification of a Vaishnava, which is to offer all respects to others, amanina, manadina, kirtaniya, sadahari, is also conspicuous by its absence in a Kanista Adhikari. If such a person, however, has faith in the Vedic literatures and tries to understand the statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, he will gradually be elevated to the second and first class stages of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll stop there and continue tomorrow. And so are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So I want to understand, in day-to-day life, in this situation, like
What?
situations like this, we get this knowledge, and when we go out in the out of this temple, and then when we engage with people,
Yes.
and we end up criticizing like Bill Gates or people. So how do we, today's it is telling us, Krishna is in their heart as well. How do we stop us? How do we stop ourselves? At least we are not qualified to comment, even to comment. So how do we help ourselves when we are outside in the world, and then create, we get deviated from our path because the person opposite to us also can counter
Yeah.
comment.
Well, it depends on how much faith you have in Krishna. So, if your faith is weak, then don't do any of these things. Stay within the perimeter, your safe zone, right? So instead of criticizing nonsense people, just be very kind to the people you're speaking to. Give them prasadam, teach them how to chant Hare Krishna, invite them to the temple, invite them to your house also, right? Make friends. The way you preach is first by making friends, and over a long period of time, showing that you're honest and you're sincere and you're humble. When they see those qualities, they feel very happy to see you. If you're chastising people or criticizing other people all the time, it's too much for them. But if you just stay on the high road. And later on, when you're much more fixed in Krishna consciousness, then you may be able to explain how so-and-so is not actually such a great person. But why go there now? You just stay on the high road and just give people very positive experiences, happy experiences in Krishna consciousness.
In marriage, what are the signs that we are not ready to share it?
We're still attracted to something in the material world.
And how do we find out that we are still attracted?
No, you don't have to find out. You know more than I know. I know more than you know about what we're attracted to, right? So, you have to be honest with yourself. Now, it's not that, because I'm attracted to this, I can't be Krishna conscious, so I'll just give up completely Krishna conscious and just stick with the things I'm attracted to. No. This is the test of Maya, right? Every time you think that, now I've hit the highest level, right? Maya is going to test you to see if that's true or not.
Okay.
And if you pass the tests over and over again, and by the way, the tests get harder and harder the more you advance.
Yeah.
Right? So if you pass the tests, then you're fixed. But if you always are vulnerable to these tests, then you have to be very careful and be more serious about chanting and hearing and associating and preaching. So it's a gradual process. It's not overnight that you become a pure devotee. Right?
Okay.
But you can be on the path of it and keep making steps toward the goal by strictly following the regulative principles and chanting and being very humble and meek in the association of devotees, and even in the general community. You're not an aggressor. You're a servant. So, and there was once this king, and he chose to have a person who was very poor to be one of his ministers. So the other ministers got jealous. They said, what? Who's this guy? He's a nobody. We're big guys. Why did he choose him? So they were always trying to find something wrong with the humble man. And he was given a room in the palace that he could, like, take a little rest in during the day if he wanted to. And he had a lock and key of that room. So every day, maybe after lunch or something, he would go into that room and close the door and stay there for about half an hour or an hour. So the other ministers, they started a rumor that he was stealing things. And to help it seem real, they would steal things and hide them, and they'd blame him, right? And eventually, because they kept complaining to the king decided that, maybe there's some truth to what he's saying, because some things are missing in the palace. So they decided to barge into his room when he was, had the door closed. So one day they decided to do it. So they go, and all of a sudden they bang the door open, right? And they run into the room, and they see him sitting on the floor. And there's nothing in the room. There's just a chair, and on the chair are these old, very beat up chappals. And he was just sitting there looking at it, and they were like shocked. And the king said, "What is this?" He said, "Oh, Raja," he said, "you came in so fast." And he bowed down to him. He said, "Tell me what this means." He said, "Well, I am a poor man, but you're kind enough to give me a big position. So every day I come in this room, I sit down, and I look at the chappals that I had before, so I can remember who I actually am. So I can always remain humble and follow your instructions." And the king looked at all the ministers, they're all nasty guys, right? And he said, "Thank you very much." He said, "I'm very pleased by your sincerity." Then he had all the ministers arrested and put in jail for lying about this guy, right? So you see, he didn't want to forget where he came from and who he actually was. He was not some big guy. And the only reason the king chose him because he had tested him and saw that he was an honest person, and he needed to have at least one honest person in his company that he could rely on, right? And what did the other ministers do? They tried to turn him against him with false accusations, right? That's why he had them arrested. If you vilify a person who's honest, it's very dangerous. You don't want to do that, especially if he's a devotee. He or she is a devotee. Okay, so don't overestimate yourself. All of us, if we overestimate ourselves, we will make mistakes. We should always remain humble and meek, and accept to be servants and not to be. Everyone wants to be Prabhu. Nobody wants to be Das. But we should always consider ourselves Das and everybody else is Prabhu. Right? Then there's no problem. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll stop. All glories to Prabhupada. So, Madhava Chandra is going back today,
Yes, Maharaj.
this afternoon.
Afternoon,
Uh,
Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
I'm going to go throw myself in front of the wheels of the airplane.
No.
Haribol, Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. Yes.
I'll see you in India, in Japan.
Okay, okay. As they say in English, see you later, alligator.
In a wild crocodile.
In a wild crocodile, yes.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana
Bhakati
Sadma
Vando Moyi Savadana Mate
Vando Mui Savadana Mate
Jaghara Prasade Bhai Ye Bhavatoriya Prasade Bhai Ye Bhavatoriya Krishna Prapti Hoy Jagha Hoyte
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoyte
Guru Muga Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Aikya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya
Chite Te Koriya Aikya Harana Koriyo Mane Asha
Arana
Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Gati
Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
चक्षुदान दिलो से जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Sudan Dilje Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Divya Gyani De Prakashito
प्रेम भक्ति जागा होते अविद्या विनाश जते
Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
वेदे गाय जगर चरितो
Vedika Janara Charito
सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु
Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
Kena Lokera Jivana
आह प्रभु कोरो दोया देखो मोरे पाद छाया
Prabhu Kora Doya Deha Mori Pada Chaya
ये बेजस कुशिक त्रिभुवाना
Deya Shakti Bhuvana
शील प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
Jaya Prabhupada Patita Pavana
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन्यति नामिने ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन्यति नामिने गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे
निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
कृष्ण
कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभु Prabhupada, Jaya 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 Guru Deva, 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 Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Satara Satara Shrimad His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sika Hosa Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Itai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu. Hari Bol.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic Brahma emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We'll take shelter of the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai.